It's time to talk sports. It's Hacksaw's Headlines, a panorama of the world of sports, stories, comments, and opinions.
Touchdown, San Diego!
Now, here's iconic sports talk show host Lee Hacksaw Hamilton and co-host John Riley.
Who wants to talk sports on a Thursday? We do. From the DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Center studios in San Diego, we welcome you to Hacksaw's Headlines, our Thursday podcast. Brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. You've got projects, they've got materials, you want ideas. Talk to them, DIXIELINE Lumber. This is Lee Hacksaw Hamilton, along with my co-host, John Riley. We welcome you as we go towards a great sports weekend. John, we have an enormous number of diverse topics on the table, some late-breaking stories, too, that are kind of stunners. Good afternoon. Feels good. Victory Day, Padres, Pittsburgh, as we hit the floor running to talk baseball.
What a crazy series this has been in Pittsburgh. But you're right, there's a ton. We got NFL preseason coming. We got Olympic coverage. This is a great time of the year.
A couple of business items. Those of you who are on social media, everybody's on social media. X marks the spot. I want everybody on social media to do me a favor. I want you to become one of my followers on Twitter, a.k.a. X. Just by going to my handle, at Hacksaw1090, hit the follow button. Trying to build towards 10,000 followers, and we're kind of getting close, climbing up that mountain. Item 2, do you like sports? Have you read my website? You should read my website every morning. It's all written. You give me 5 minutes. I'll give you all the stories in the world of sports. LeeHacksawHamilton.com. That's the address right there at the top of the screen. And when you go to the website, there's a big orange box right on the homepage. Fill it out. Become part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. We want you to share. We want you to subscribe. Tell everybody what we do Mondays at 1 p.m., Thursdays at 1 p.m. Pacific. And give us a rating. Give us a thumbs up. Give us 5 stars, because that really helps us. And then when we're done, after all the topics on the table have been discussed, you're going to take over this podcast. I don't know anybody else that's doing what we're doing. It's called Fans Forum. John Riley, explain to the people on live stream what Fans Forum is.
Okay, so if you have a question in the world of sports about the Padres, Dodgers, Angels, about the Rams or the Chargers or the Raiders, about the Olympics, this is your opportunity. Type in your question or comment in the live chat on Facebook, YouTube, or X. We'll get you involved in Fans Forum. We've already got someone already jumped in already, Dave Dogg, so it's still early. You can get involved.
Okay, we'll be doing that right at the end of this podcast. You are invited, urged. No, I am demanding that you join us in Fans Forum. We got a lot of topics. This is the first weekend of the NFL exhibition schedule. Preseason games beginning tonight, Friday, Saturday, into Sunday. It's going to be fun, and football becomes the lead topic on the table today.
Yeah, here we go. NFL nonstop 24/7 coverage. Let's bring it up.
Item 1, that guy's in trouble. That guy is Jim Harbaugh. That guy is the head coach of the Chargers. That guy is the former head coach of the University of Michigan. He has been defiant all week, not talking to the media except to make one statement that I don't cheat, I don't steal, I don't lie. I knew nothing about what was going on at Michigan. You can take that at face value, or you can read between the lines and try to understand what was coming out of his mouth. Jim Harbaugh says, I'm innocent of any wrongdoing at all as it relates to Spygate. What happened last year at the University of Michigan, where one of his staff members suddenly disappeared from the Michigan roster directory, was removed after he was implicated, he being Connor Stalions, in sign stealing, personally going out and videotaping opponents that Michigan was going to play. Videotaping their sideline coaches, videotaping their quarterbacks on the sidelines, and all the signals that were shooting in during the game. He got caught. He got turned in. He got dismissed. Michigan has just completed its major investigation. They say Harbaugh had information. Harbaugh refused to turn over any information, especially text messages from other people, Connor Stalions, assistant coaches, etc. They said Harbaugh lied to them, and they said Harbaugh was uncooperative and tried to derail the whole process. It's a really ugly story. The end result, Harbaugh's been hit with a 4-year suspension if he ever wanted to coach again in college football by the NCAA. Michigan had already been disciplined. Their assistant coaches who, quote, had fingerprints on this Connor Stalions relationship served suspensions last year, but they reserved the right to continue the investigation with a non-cooperative Harbaugh. NCAA said last night, after Harbaugh went back into denial mode, the evidence does not support anything that Harbaugh has said. So that's what Harbaugh said. That's what the NCAA said. And Paul Finebaum, amazing talk show host in the Deep South, kind of the voice of the Southeastern Conference, but he covers college football everywhere, went on network TV, and he called Jim Harbaugh a pathological liar. Now, Michigan got in trouble in 2020 for the major COVID violations, illegal recruiting of athletes when the COVID blackout period took place at the height of the COVID virus, and everybody had to stay away from bringing recruits in, contacting recruits, but Michigan brought 9 guys in, and there was all types of contact. Those guys were disciplined. Harbaugh at that point said, I had no knowledge of what was going on. So Finebaum just lit him up nationally, called him a pathological liar, and said it was an Oscar-winning performance of lies out of Jim Harbaugh's mouth. Now, Harbaugh refused to talk to the media covering the Chargers in training camp. He made one statement on one piece of paper, walked away, has not spoken to anybody. He's going to black out Charger media the entire season. And by treating people that way, he's inviting the whole national media to show up in L.A., and they're going to create an incident for Harbaugh at the Charger facility. So the Chargers now going to ban the working from media from covering the team because of the way Harbaugh's acting. So that's where we are at this date. So, John Riley, I'm trying to give Harbaugh benefit of the doubt because he has a great resume. But I also understand Harbaugh controls everything at Michigan, and he controls virtually everything with the Chargers. Harbaugh had knowledge of every minute of every second of Michigan football. So how could you believe that I had no knowledge of Connor Stalions, who was on that staff? I had no knowledge of text messages. And if you had no knowledge, why wouldn't you turn your cell phone over when all the other coaches turned their cell phones over when they got implicated? So Harbaugh said one thing. NCAA 16-page report that was released early yesterday. I read it. It describes something. In real specifics, says something different. And John Riley says?
Yeah, Oscar-winning performance. Here we go. Now, I can understand if Harbaugh didn't give Stalions direction to go get the stolen video. But when he comes back with all that intelligence, he's obviously going to share it with the other coaches so they can put in plays and they know how to do, set up their game strategy. And so I would imagine Harbaugh must have found out about this at some level and then decided, well, I can either admit it and take a hit or just hope it goes away. And so, yeah, this is an Oscar lie of all time.
Burning question now, his decision to treat the NFL media by refusing to meet with them and talk to them and answer any questions, Charger-related or NCAA-related, is he not creating a second set of circumstances that he can't control? Because I tend to think now he invites the entire national media to swoop in on the Charger practice facility and show up at these press conferences with cameras, and they're going to be freaking relentless until he answers questions, either about the Bolts or about what happened in Ann Arbor. No? Yes?
Yeah. Well, the best solution to this is sunshine, right? Have it transparent. If he's doing the right thing, he will just share everything, answer the questions. He can't suffer a penalty in the NFL. This is with the NCAA, and he ain't going back. So I think he's better off just getting it all out, facing the media, and hopefully getting to a point where he can turn the page.
His agent sounded off late yesterday in Detroit, and his agent was of the opinion NCAA is like a kangaroo court. He said, this is like a guy who gets disciplined by his high school after he had left to go on to college because he didn't sign the high school yearbook for a cheerleader. That's kind of absurd. That's kind of a reach. This is a little bit more severe than that because it goes to, quote, the integrity of the game. So I'll be intrigued to see where this road takes us because he's got 17 weeks of an NFL season ahead. And this story is not going to go away because Harbaugh nor Dean Spanos doesn't want the media to ask him questions. Sorry, that's going to offend the media. The media's got a job to do. We're going to ask questions. I agree with you. Answer the question. Answer it transparently. Yes, my assistants got data from Stallions. I didn't know what Stallions was doing. My assistants brought me that data. Now, he could stand up and say, we never used that data once I found out where it came from, how it was obtained. But can you believe Harbaugh going forward on anything anymore?
I think you can. But Spanos curse, what do you think?
You could hope.
Yeah.
So that's where we are. You're an NFL fan. You're a Michigan fan. You're a college football fan. You're a Charger fan. Do you believe what's coming out of Harbaugh's mouth right now with the statement, or do you believe the NCAA? And no pre-comment prejudice. I think we all think the NCAA is to blame for the mess that we have in college athletics, but we're talking just the specifics of Harbaugh, Michigan, sign stealing, Connor Stallions. Okay, that's how we've started this podcast. I expect college football fan, a.k.a. Charger fan, to give us an opinion. Elsewhere, next topic, John.
Okay, let's go to the NFL. A lot of movement here with the quarterbacks.
Yeah, first weekend of games starts tonight, runs through Sunday. And the burning question, my young quarterback, is he going to play? Well, let's start with New England. New England plays Carolina tonight, Thursday night. They're going to start Jacoby Brissett, but they're going to split the snaps between the journeyman Brissett and Drake May out of North Carolina, the number one pick.
Good.
Brissett's been getting most all the snaps with the number one unit, but the kid's got to learn to play at the speed that the NFL is all about. Whether or not he plays come opening day will be decided. So Drake May is going to play in game one. Next one, Atlanta. The Falcons open against Miami. Michael Penix is going to play a lot. Kirk Cousins may not be ready for live fire action. Falcons announced yesterday Michael Penix is going to play a preponderance of the snaps for them. Third one, Washington. Washington is going to play the Jets. Now, there's no Aaron Rodgers sighting this weekend. Jaden Daniels will start. Jaden Daniels is going to play a lot for Dan Quinn's new Washington Commander playbook. So we'll get a much better look at him. Raiders in action. This is a burning question. They go play the Vikings. I don't know that the Raiders know that they have a quarterback. Gardner Minshew has been hot and cold in these preseason to the point that Antonio Pierce kind of lost his mind early this past week that, he can play. He's got to stop turning the ball over. Minshew's turning the ball over in preseason workouts. Minshew's going to play. Aiden O'Connor, who finished up last season, is going to split time with him in this game against the Minnesota Vikings. O'Connor has been less than dazzling, has just not moved the ball, has not made a lot of plays in the Raiders preseason camp, and he played in spurts okay at the end of last season when he had to play, but at the end of the day, they didn't throw a lot of touchdown passes. So I don't think the Raiders, as we go through the next 3 weeks, I don't think I have any idea if they really got legitimacy at quarterback. The Chargers don't have Justin Herbert and won't have him for 4 weeks. Chargers got a problem. Easton Stick, young guy, North Dakota State, highly regarded, smart, athletic. He doesn't fit the playbook that they're running right now with the new coordinator, Greg Roman. They played joint practices with the Rams, and he was miserable. And their whole offense, the Bolts' new offense under Harbaugh and Greg Roman, is predicated on in the pocket, making the decision, making the right throw. Stick, under the past coaching staff, was allowed to move the pocket and create on the run and scramble. Well, that's not part of what they're doing right now with the Bolts, and he doesn't look good. And if he can't be legitimate as a backup in this new playbook, new formations, it's kind of late to go find a backup quarterback that you can trust. So, and Justin Herbert's not going to be ready until maybe the final week of preseason. Denver, I find this really strange. We have heard so many different things that have come out of the Broncos camp. Sean Payton, the roster, Sean Payton's quarterback situation, the dead money with Russell Wilson getting dealt. Bo Nix is third on the depth chart as of this afternoon. Third.
Really?
And he had taken a lot of the OTA number one snaps, and there was an awful lot of praise. So I'm just kind of surprised. They're starting Jarrett Stidham, journeyman, for the first preseason game for the Broncos. And then they're going with Zach Wilson as the number 2 guy. And Wilson had been on the outs. So I don't know what to make of this whole Bo Nix thing. If you really thought he was ready to be in the NFL, would you not play him in the preseason and get him ready for live fire action? So that was strange. And then the other one is Dallas. And for the first time in months, we're not going to talk about contracts or Dallas holdouts, C.D. Lamb, et cetera, Dak Prescott, et cetera, Micah Parsons' contract, et cetera. You know who the starting running back is in Dallas? Ezekiel Elliott has won the job back after being dispatched a year ago.
Really?
He is the starting running back for the Dallas Cowboys. That's a strange set of circumstances. So we got NFL football on your TV, my TV, and we'll be watching it on John's TV. So, John, those are unique storylines on a quarterbacks. Go ahead and give me some responses.
Well, love seeing all the young kids play, right? It's Drake May, I'm happy for him. Jalen Daniels, happy for him. They give those guys a shot.
Caleb Williams today was informed he will start for the Bears against Buffalo's Josh Allen. So Caleb, who did not play in the Hall of Fame game, is going to start for the Bears too. So we'll just add that to the conversation. Go ahead.
Okay, wow, that's a lot. Now, Bo Nix, you've been talking about Bo Nix a lot in your Best 15 every day, and I thought he was, moving his way up the chart. I'm surprised that he's not going to be at least the number 2. I mean, is he not all the way up to speed on the offense?
Could well be, but he's taken a ton of snaps in the OTAs. You know, they have like 3 different sets of OTA workouts, and then they have the veterans minicamp, and he was running with the number 1s for a chunk of that time. Either that, or maybe they want to see if Zach Wilson can play in this playbook, and maybe they'll make a determination after preseason game 1 that, the ex-Jet can't play here, and maybe he winds up getting cut. I don't know. But I'm surprised that Bo Nix is not getting more live fire.
How many preseason games this year?
3.
3. Okay.
Except for the teams that played in the Hall of Fame game.
Right. Okay. All right. Well, that's better than when it was 4.
It's better than it was 6 or 7 way back in the day. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's the latest on NFL quarterbacks. We got other storylines here we want to cover in the National Football League, John.
Yeah, we do. I mean, look at this one here. College football updates too. Niners, Rams, Cowboys.
Okay, let's start first of all with the love me not storyline, Brandon Ayuk. 49ers are really fed up. Brandon Ayuk wants a contract upgrade. They met and they talked about Economics 101 and all the things that San Francisco's got to deal with. He came out of that private meeting with John Lynch and said, I understand. By the end of that week, he was back on social media. I want to trade. I want out. San Francisco said, we'll make a deal. San Francisco had a deal in New England. They could have traded him by now. New England was willing to give up, I believe, a number 2 and maybe a player. But a number 2 in New England is going to be fairly high on the draft board because of how substandard Patriot roster is. New England was prepared to offer him $28 million a year. That'd take him from $14 million to $28, almost to the top of the line of the star wide receivers. Ayuk turned him down. Said, I won't. Now, he doesn't have a no trade, but he let it be known, I will not accept a trade and I will not report to the New England Patriots. So now San Francisco's really peeved.
Yeah.
So they went back and they have reopened talks with the Steelers and the Browns. Browns evidently are offering veteran wide receiver Amari Cooper, but he's making big money. He's making like 24, 25 now because Cleveland upgraded his contract. I don't think San Francisco wants to take on a $25 million contract for a much older receiver, though Cooper's a much more proven product than the explosive young guy Ayuk is. Pittsburgh evidently is willing to take on a contract, evidently willing to give up a number 1, and willing to give him a big salary, which is not the way Pittsburgh historically has done business. But the 49ers want a wide receiver in return from Ayuk. So that's a big issue right now is this whole thing is just unraveled because he turned down the opportunity to go play in New England. New England, I don't think has much of a chance of having a winning season, but he gets his money, and that's what this is all about. He can go to Pittsburgh, and he'd be a contributor with the other wide receiver, George Pickens, and the tight end, and obviously Russell Wilson. I just don't know where the whole Cleveland storyline is there, but If Frisco won't take on Amari Cooper, then I don't think that's a trade partner that they can do business with the Browns. So you got that. L.A. Rams, this is not who we are. Sean McVay is not handling all these injuries very well. They now have 6 key guys out, including 3 of their top 5 offensive linemen with injuries, knees, shoulders. They've gotten so desperate at this late date, they've gone into the UFL, the Spring League. They've signed 3 offensive linemen from the UFL. You know, those guys are like players 1800, 1801, 1802, 1803 on the pecking order, because everybody's got 90 guys in camp.
Right.
So it's absurd, and McVay is not handling this adversity really well. You got the Dallas situation. You got CeeDee Lamb. He is running up a stack of fines. I'm not good in new math, but they've been in camp, I want to say, probably 12 days now in Oxnard at $50,000 a day fine.
$600,000.
6 bills. Now, they say they're going to take care of CeeDee Lamb, but that's $600,000 that he won't have. That's absolutely amazing. College football, a couple of notes. I guess we should expect this to have come when those guys, Southern Cal, went there, Big Ten. Lincoln Riley this week indicated, in all likelihood, USC is going to end their rivalry with Notre Dame. Goes back to 1926. Only a couple years, and at the height of World War II, those games were not played. This is quite an intersectional rivalry, and his reaction, we have to do something schedule-wise, and in the non-conference, we can't play every big boy because we're playing every big boy in the Big Ten Conference. So this is kind of nasty that it looks like this is going to go away, this Trojan-Irish rivalry. Like I said, goes back to 1926. I think this year it'll be the 95th meeting between the schools. And then there's San Diego State. Am I the only one that's excited to see what Sean Lewis unveils Saturday in their fan fest at Snapdragon? I must be, because there is no excitement in this community. I don't understand why. John, when they opened Snapdragon Stadium, they had 15,986 season ticket holders. They have 5,800 now. Mm-hmm. Isn't that terrible?
It is.
They've lost so much support. Bad product on the field, Neanderthal offense, ticket prices way too high, and they've dropped ticket prices twice now as they go to year 3. They can't get the fans back. And last I checked, there were a hell of a lot of deposed Charger fans in our community with no place to go see games. Why would you not put your arms around a good program? And the program under Brady Hoke, Rocky Long, and Brady Hoke Revisited has been pretty good, with the exception of just the last 2 seasons when there's been slippage. And now you get this bright light guy coming from Colorado who had set all types of offensive records at CU, then at Kent State, before that at Bowling Green and Syracuse. And nobody is talking about the Aztecs, and nobody's buying season tickets for the Aztecs. Just shocking. So those are football storylines, and John Riley's got an opinion on a few, I imagine.
I do. And so the Aztec thing, I'm personally very curious, to see how this is going to play out. But I'd imagine the fan base is similar. They're kind of wait and see to see how this works. But if they win, they will show up. I guarantee you. They sell out Viejas Arena. They will come to Snapdragon if this team is a winner. Going to the other topics, SC, that is weak sauce, bailing on Notre Dame. They probably want to trade them in for some cupcake on the schedule. I think that's horrible. And it's kind of cool that Notre Dame is right there in the geographic area of the Big Ten. So I wish they would keep that. The Niners, Ayuk, show me the money. They showed it to him. And he says, I don't want to go to New England. If you're John Lynch Jr., you got to be just furious.
Yeah, and John's got so many issues that he's got to deal with, because he's still got the Brock Purdy issue.
Yeah.
And he's paying a phenomenal amount of money to Christian McCaffrey and George Kittle and Nick Bosa. There's only so many dollars in the till. I have no doubt, and also paying Deebo Samuel, I have no doubt that Ayuk is going to be a big-time player somewhere else. He did catch 75 receptions last year as the alternate receiver. He averaged 18 yards per catch as the other guy opposite Deebo. He caught 7 touchdowns. But Now he's trying to dictate where to go, and he doesn't have a no-trade clause. I just don't know how this is going to work itself out, except that it's become a big bleeping distraction.
Where did Ayuk go to college?
Arizona State, late developer.
Okay, because I don't remember hearing about him in college football.
He was okay, but he's grown. I mean, he's just a tremendous physical athlete. But he's only had one banner season in the National Football League. And he wants to go from $14 million to obviously more than $28 million, because that was the deal that New England had agreed to.
That's doubling his salary.
No, it's not. He's not going there.
No, he's not going. Yeah.
Okay, those are football topics on the table. So somebody is an NFL fan jumping board. Any 49er people? How does John Lynch solve this situation? You want to talk about USC? Are there any Aztec fans out there? Please explain to me why the hell you don't put your arms around this college football program. We know how you've put your arms around basketball. Why are you not an Aztec football fan? Last I checked, there's nothing else in this community football-related that would turn you on. So jump on board. Fans Forum chat box is open because you're going to take over this show when we are done. Hey, we get to halftime. Our podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 stores to serve you in San Diego. Dude, what do you like the most about DIXIELINE? Because I've seen you in the aisles when I've been there doing stuff.
Well, one of the cool things they have is a drive-through lumber yard, which is really great for contractors and homeowners. You don't have to get one of those carts in the parking lot and schlep it in and try to load it in the store. You just roll in, they load you up, you roll out, and you're in business. It's a great deal at all the DIXIELINE lumber yards.
If you got projects, they've got the materials. If you've got projects and you're looking for ideas and direction, because some of us are not too smart in doing things around the house, me and him included, you ought to see his family room, go to the DIXIELINE. Let them become your consultant along the way. These are great people. DIXIELINE Lumber. And a couple of reminders before we go to the second half of our Thursday podcast, before we head to this great sports weekend, just really briefly, X marks the spot. I'm on social media. Dude, you're on social media. I want you to become one of my followers. Go to my address, @Hacksaw1090, @Hacksaw1090. Follow what we post on Twitter, on X, all the time. Also, you like sports? Tomorrow morning, you should read what I write, and I write a ton on my website, LeeHacksawHamilton.com. Doesn't matter what your favorite sport is, there will be something that you will be pleased to read about. Just read my website every morning. And when you go to the website on the homepage, there's a big orange box right at the top of the homepage. Fill it all out. Put your information in there. Become part of Hacksaw's Insiders Group. You get all types of alerts, things we're doing. And, of course, we want you to share. Tell everybody who we are and what we do. Want you to subscribe, because that way you'll get alerts every time we put something up on the YouTube channel, which is a lot of the different days of the week. And, John, when we're done, we're looking for people to jump in board or jump on us. It's called Fans Forum. John came up with the idea. This thing's gone crazy.
Yeah, Fans Forum, your chance to ask Lee a lot of questions in the world of sports. Drop your live, you're taking the live chat, Facebook, X, or YouTube to get involved. By the way, Lee, when you're going through all your business items, you've got to be the hardest working man in sports journalism.
I do put a few minutes into this. This stuff does not happen by accident.
I mean, you're writing literally every day. You're going to press conferences. We're doing the podcast. You always interviewed on a lot of these other shows around the United States. I mean, how do you keep up with all of this?
Phone rings. I pick it up and answer. It might be somebody collecting a bill, or it might be somebody asking me to do an interview, but I enjoy being active in sports. And
Good for you.
Awful lot out there. Okay, we go to the second half. We're going a lot more different directions. Get ready. John, go ahead.
Okay, let's talk about some baseball teams here. The Padres are coming off a nice win.
Oh, Padres come off 3 victories over the Pittsburgh Pirates. I mean, that was ugly ball to say the least. Pittsburgh self-destructed more than the Padres won these games. Pittsburgh's defense are terrible at first base. They're weak at third base. This young shortstop, O'Neill Cruz, is having a terrible defensive time. Padres had to burn up their bullpen. They went to the bullpen 15 times in 3 games. I mean, they are gassed because their starters aren't giving them good innings. And, of course, they also got hurt because of the rain out or the rain delay for Game 1 in Pittsburgh, where they had to take Dylan Cease out and they could not send him back to the mound after he sat for 2.5 hours. So they're going into Miami to play another bad Miami Marlins team. But, man, they're wheezing right now. there. But they are hitting the ball, and Manny Machado's plays on defense were just phenomenal. Ton of controversy in this series, a lot of bad calls. His two managers looked like they ate a bad tuna fish sandwich every time they came out to home plate to confront those guys. So, I mean, the Padres are rolling. Padres are now, they have won 14 of their last 17. Wow. Only outdone by Arizona, which has won 14 of its last 16. And Arizona, of course, swept a doubleheader against Cleveland yesterday. So, dogfight, babe. We got a lot of baseball left to be played, but there is a huge dogfight for the wild card positions. So that's the Padres story. Is they fly from Pittsburgh to open the series against Miami, and then they're going to come home. Joe Musgrove will now likely pitch on Monday, and they'll just see if he can give him 30 pitches, 40 pitches, how deep he can go as he makes the first start since May, the aftermath of the bone spur in the elbow. So that's the latest with the Padres. A couple different questions, different dimensions here to talk about with Dodger baseball. I don't know if you saw the Freddie Freeman press conference. It was spectacular. I've seen some unbelievable press conferences, some very emotional press conferences. And he was open. He wept about the near death of his child. He talked about how hard it was, the uncertainty as his child went into total paralysis because of this virus infection that attacked his immune system. And they put the 3-year-old boy on ventilator, and he was on ventilator for, I think, almost 8 days. And through all the blood transfusions and everything else, the young man is home now, and he will make a recovery, but he does not have use of his legs yet. At one point, this virus went from his feet, where he couldn't move his feet, to his legs, to his hip, to his arms. He was not functional. It was unbelievably scary. And Freddie Freeman, he talked 7 minutes extensively, and he wept in the middle of it. It was unbelievably moving to sit there. And as a parent who's been through tough times with our kids, and you have with your kids, we're talking about your child in a near-death experience. I can't imagine being able to verbalize that. There was so much respect from the media. They had to ask questions, but so much respect in the tone of the questions. And then as he comes on the field for the first game against the Phillies, they would not let him bat. The fans stood up and gave him, I think it was about a 4 or 5 minute standing ovation.
Nice.
They would not let him get in the batter's box. And the umpire came out and tapped him on the shoulder. And the Phillies came out of their dugout and they tipped their hat. Just amazing for him to be able to come back to the game and play and get back to the level he was before this happened, and how hard this must have been, just the worst, absolute worst week of his life. So that story, the second story has to do with the demise of the Dodgers, and they've lost back-to-back games to the Phillies, and Dave Roberts, his team is just unraveling all around him. Umpires blew a terrible call at third base. The bullpen continues to set itself on fire. They don't know how far they can go with Clayton Kershaw. His last start was good, but the bullpen fell apart. Then Brusdar Graterol suffered a severe hamstring injury. 8 pitches in, had not pitched all season, been on the DL recovering from a shoulder issue, came back and went down. He did not tear the hamstring, but it's called grade 3, which is the most severe hamstring. He may not pitch the rest of the season. So the Dodgers are in utter disarray. The other topic has to do with Padre ticket prices. They call it a minor ticket hike, only 3% this year. But the Padres have raised their ticket prices 50% over the last 4 years. And they're drawing phenomenal crowds because the product on the field is good and the experience at Petco Park, the gas lamp, is just super. But how much higher can you go? How much more can you ask from your fans? Because it's just not ticket prices or food prices or hoodie and memorabilia prices. It's $40 parking ticket prices on top of the ticket prices. So that's amazing. Third topic is the Angels. It's been a rugged season. Ron Washington has held that thing together. They have these nice little winning streaks, and then it gets away from them. They've got some cornerstone players I think have established they can be stars on that team. Zach Neto, the shortstop, is a fine player. And Nolan Chanel, who's a first baseman leadoff hitter, has gotten better and better. And Logan Ohapi, the catcher's got power, though he's not hitting for average. We see flashes from the pitching staff. You say, yeah, they look like they got some guys, but then these guys regress. I don't know where they are with Reed Detmers. I don't know if they're going to get Patrick Sandoval back. So the Angels are only halfway up the hill trying to stay competitive. And I think just based on everything that's happened around the franchise as it relates to Arte Moreno's ownership, I don't know how the hell they're going to get free agents who want to come there, because they're going to have budget space this year. But who wants to play in that environment in which the track record of the owner has been so shoddy for a group of years? So, John, I talked Padres, Dodgers, Angels. Go ahead, pick a few topics. Give me a response.
Okay. Well, first of all, the Padres series against the Pirates has been unbelievable. And
bizarre.
I was just looking through Twitter, and I guess one of the Pirates announcers said these Padres are like cockroaches; they just won't go away. And then I was listening at the end of the game to Jesse Agler, and he's saying, "Yeah, the Padres break out the brooms to swab the deck, for the Pirates." And I thought that was clever. So I'm encouraged there. I mean, looking at these other stories, when you talk about Freddie Freeman, I can feel your emotion. I mean, you break up a bit on that.
Yes, I have. If you ever lost a child, It's tough to bury a child. And I did.
Oh, you did?
And Freddie Freeman, what he went through, and for him to be able to enunciate it is just stunning to me. And he kept apologizing for not having composure. Hell, I was sitting in my living room almost weeping, watching it, understanding the emotion of what he was feeling. So kudos to him. And I'll tell you, Major League Baseball, I went on social media. You can't believe the volume of players and other teams that went on their own social media accounts and asked for prayers for Freddie Freeman. Amazing story.
It really is an amazing story. So, here we are, lots of love for the Dodgers, and this is a very unique circumstance. Ticket prices at Petco, the fans are going to keep showing up, so they're playing that game. Someone's got to pay Manny Machado. So, they're doing that. And then, the Angels, it's nice to see the young kids doing well. I like that, but I don't know what the future is for that team.
Yeah, I don't know either. I don't know what the winter baseball meetings are going to be like for the Halos. I don't know who the general manager is going to be, because Perry Manassian's in the final months of his contract. And if you make another change, and it's another philosophy change in terms of what kind of player you want, how do you build the farm system, etc., just chaos. Ron Washington's done a hell of a job sales pitching. I got friends at Sirius XM on the Home Plate Baseball channel where I used to work on weekends, and they had Ron Washington on, and his sales pitch was phenomenal to the young players about only thing that counts today is today, not whether you went 0 for 4 or you're 1 for 11 or you made an error or my reliever can't get anybody out. The only thing that counts is you and what you're going to do today. And he's convinced these kids that next opportunity is the next thing I should be focused on. It's just a fascinating way that Washington has worked with the young guys. But he didn't have enough players. That's a big issue.
Well, that's good advice, isn't it? I mean, in life in general, just be present in the moment.
Okay, so we got a lot of baseball to talk about. Dodger fan, feel free to make a comment on Freddie Freeman. You want to talk about Padre ticket prices? Where the Padres are right now is, this is an unbelievable streak they've put up, even though a bunch of it's come against some of the really bad teams in Major League Baseball. John, next topic.
Billy Beane. This guy, he passed away.
Billy Beane was a journeyman player. Played for the Mets, played for the Padres, moved around Major League Baseball. He was here for 3 years as kind of a part-time outfielder, up with a big club, down in the minor leagues, etc. At the end of his career, he went public that he was gay. Very intellectual guy. I had the chance to interview him twice on Sports Talk Radio. I knew of his career, and then obviously when the story came out about being a homosexual, he got hired by Major League Baseball as a vice president. The correct term was vice president of diversity. What he was a player advocate for players who were gay. And he went to every spring training camp, and during a regular season, he would make appearances in clubhouses and do Q&As with the entire roster and sit and talk. And he was not telling you had to accept a homosexual teammate. but he wanted questions from you. If you had questions about what you felt, how you should act, is there something out there I don't know about this that you could inform me? His own personal story was really hard because he was, quote, in the closet as a minor league player and a major league player for a decade. And then he finally went public. And he was so smart and so intellectual, and he could tell you where this came from, why he was the way he was, whether it was hereditary, genetics, choice, etc. And he did so much, and there have not been, I don't believe, ever since he went public, I don't believe there have been any players that have come out in the major leagues and said, I am gay. In the minor leagues, there have. And in the minor leagues, and those guys there was a caste system in the minor leagues I was told about that was horrible, that these guys were treated poorly, by their teammates in Toledo because they were gay. And sometimes the word gets out, sometimes the word never gets out. But the minor league players flocked to him to counsel with him. What he did was, on behalf of baseball, special. Smart guy, fought an unbelievable battle with acute leukemia in less than 1 year. He passed on, but hell of a guy. And I sat there, I learned so much from him and the approach to how he dealt with his life and the message he wanted to deliver to players and what his impact on guys in AAA and AA and even the Caribbean players who did not speak the language very well was pretty doggone impressive. So baseball's mourning him, and a lot of people in baseball have spoken glowingly about Billy Beane.
See, that's the right approach, just to talk about it, have a conversation. Because for some men, it's such a voodoo topic, that they can't speak openly. And so Billy Beane, I think that's terrific, the way he handled that. And it's a sad moment for baseball, and hopefully baseball will continue making strides. But isn't it kind of interesting that there are two Billy Beanes?
Yeah, there's the Billy Beane, the former baseball executive, Oakland Athletics, Moneyball and all that. But he spells his last name differently than this Billy Beane does.
The other crazy part is that my wife's first crush in elementary school was a young boy named Billy Beane. And it wasn't either of these two guys. So just kind of a fun name, too. But yeah, this guy, I remember when he was doing the tours around MLB, and they did interviews with him on the MLB channel. This guy was first class.
Yeah, he's going to be missed and taken way too early. He was only 59. His impact after his career, more impressive than his baseball career as a player.
Oh, of course. Absolutely.
Yeah. On we go. Next question.
Let's go here. Spurs signing a couple of San Diego State Aztecs.
Yeah, this is kind of cool. I think one of the most unique places to play in the NBA is to play for Greg Popovich, who's going to be is in the Hall of Fame. San Diego State obviously has put guys in NBA camps, and some are playing. They just signed Malachi Flynn. He had, of course, been taken by the Toronto Raptors, was kind of an off-the-bench guy, traded to Detroit middle of last season, scored 50 points in a game for the Pistons, but for the most part sat on the bench for an extended period of time, was unsigned. Boom, he goes to San Antonio. Probably makes the team as a three-point shooter off the bench. The signing of him came days after they signed Nathan Mensah.
Nice.
The shot blocker. Nathan had some cups of coffee cameo appearances with the Charlotte Hornets last year, played pretty well in their NBA G League team. I think it was in Greensboro. I think he averaged 10 points, 6 rebounds a game there. So he goes into San Antonio right before Malachi Flynn gets there, and he'll get a chance to maybe be the rebounder, defensive guy off the bench because they need depth pieces there. Everybody thinks San Antonio Spurs, and the only name that flashes Victor Wembanyama, but they need support guys. So these two guys getting a chance to learn facets of the game that are pretty unique because Greg Popovich is the professor that's dealing that information. So that'll be good for them. No sighting yet of Jaden Ledee. I hope he winds up in the NBA G League. He played briefly for the Minnesota Timberwolves in the Las Vegas Summer League, but has not been offered a contract yet. If not there, maybe he winds up going to Europe somewhere else.
This is great news because Malachi Flynn, first-round draft pick, he was buried on the Raptors bench. Nick Nurse had no confidence in him, and we just kept hoping as Aztec fans that he was going to get an opportunity. And he finally got it with Detroit to a degree, and then you still weren't sure. But I heard that the deal that he signed with the Spurs, I guess he's got to make the team still. It's not a guarantee.
Two-way deal.
A two-way deal.
NBA G League.
Okay.
If he doesn't make the team. But he's got more experience, and he's shown he can play defense, and he obviously, based on some appearances with the Pistons, has shown he can shoot threes coming off the bench. So only time will tell whether they both are in the NBA come opening night or one is up, the other is back. Even if you go back to the G League, you can be called back up when their injuries occur. So, but playing for Popovich, I think, is the wild card in this whole equation just because of Pop's intelligence in the game and what he can teach them.
He's an innovative guy, and he's not going to take a stereotype and bury a kid. Yep. And then plus, Flynn can play the point, and imagine the pick and roll with Wembanyama. I mean, that could be really nice.
Yeah, two bigs out there. That'd be fun. So that's great news there with San Diego State's kids. Next question.
Olympics. We're getting near the end here, Lee.
Yeah. Shocker. Shocker at noon today. Noah Lyles, favorite coming off the gold medal run that he had in the 100-meter, ran in the 200, and didn't look right. Out of the gate, he did not look right. He finished a disappointing third. There was no explosiveness. Part of me says that the wear and tear factor to run 2 qualifiers and then run the 100-meter, he ran 3 times to get the gold, to run 2 qualifiers, and he didn't run dominant in the qualifiers in the 200 and to run. So he ran 6 events, in essence. And I thought he was gassed, and he just did not look right, and he went down and was down for 30 seconds afterward. Then I found out that he has asthma.
Oh.
And I thought to myself, that's a problem. Maybe this wear and tear caught up to him, and it's an asthmatic situation, hot and humid Paris had something to do with it. And within the last half hour, the bulletin, he tested positive for COVID on Tuesday. And he trained, he did the protocols, and they approved him to run. Maybe there was a negative test before the race, but he was allowed to run. He came to the press conferences delayed, wearing a mask with a doctor, and the doctor explained the whole protocols, but he was not 100%. And that's too bad because he could have been the guy that could have doubled and won the 100 and 200 for the first time since 1984 when Carl Lewis did it back then. The 200 medal was won by a sprinter from Botswana who was powerful. And then Kenny Bednarik, Lyle's teammate, big, tall, rangy, much bigger than Lyle, he finished with a personal best. He got the second medal, the silver, and Noah Lyle wound up the third. No determination whether Lyle, who's now got a gold and a bronze, whether Lyle is going to run on the relay on Friday. But knowing him, I would assume he'd try to go if he continues to test negative for COVID. But he was asthmatic. That story came out within a half hour after the race, and I thought, there's the explanation, the wear and tear factor. And then we found out just before starting the podcast he had COVID. Other names, Kenny Rooks, distance runner, Brigham Young University. What a phenomenal performance by this guy. I just want to be able to read my notes here. He wins a steeplechase. Steeplechases, laps, jumping into water, over hurdles. I mean, it's a gruesome race. Won the steeplechase. He passed 3 guys on the final lap after they had done the final hurdle into the water. Somehow he found the strength and reserve to win the gold in a really rugged race. Quincy Hall, sprinter. Quincy Hall gets the gold in the 400-meter. John, he came from 5th place. It was like somebody shot him out of a rocket coming out of the final turn. And he made that turn, and he blew by everybody else. He went 5-1 and won it at the stretch. Cole HOCKER, this guy came out of nowhere. He gets a gold in the 200 meter. I'm sorry, Cole HOCKER. He gets a gold in the 1500. He sprinted at the end against the top 1500 guy from Norway and England's top guy, and he beat them both. And he is small and he is slight, and he beat these two guys that are huge with long strides. I mean, what he accomplished was absolutely amazing. And then it was Gabby Thomas. I've seen some explosive performances, but man, at 200 meters, she was phenomenal in getting the Olympic gold. And of course, Sophie Smith has become a legitimate goal scorer for Team USA's women's soccer team. They're going to play Brazil in the finals. That is going to be a match worth watching. And strange event in the 5,000-meter men's race. I don't know if you've heard this or seen this. In the first heat of the semifinals, there's a mass of guys running. One guy elbows another guy. He falls down. 4 guys fall over him. And the race is all screwed up because one guy flipped an elbow because of the traffic as they closed down inside. In the second race, the second qualifier for the 5,000, pack racing till they spread out. Pack racing, turn the corner, and they look up. There's a cameraman who wandered out onto the track.
What?
And these runners had to do this to avoid running over this photographer who wasn't paying attention to what event was being run, and he just stepped out onto the track. Luckily, nobody hit him. Luckily, nobody went down, but it's weird to see the video of this massive group of runners in this 5,000 heat going, boom, and there's his photographer standing there. Take his credential away, please. So track and field is what's highlighted in the end of the week. So quite a story on Noah Lyles. We'll see if he can run in the final relay. But our distance guys have just rocketed Team USA. U.S. has more golds than anybody. U.S. leads the total medal chase. And most everybody went into these Olympics in Paris thinking it would be China or it would be Japan. And yet Team USA, based on the strength of its distance runners, right now, they lead the medal race with 2 days to go.
Team America. Here we go. Yeah. It's all good. I would love to go to the Olympics or even to the NCAA championships in Eugene, because I would imagine if you're at that event and you are standing in the presence of these sprinters, you would realize how really fast they are. Because on TV, I don't know if you really get a good sense for it, do you?
No, I think when you see the long shot, like if it's 100 meters, and you can see the power, and then you can see like there's an extra gear, you say, wow, these people are really special athletes. But if you're there and you observe it, maybe it's a different level. On TV, you get a much better view of it because the camera angles are higher and you get a much clearer view of the whole field as they go down the track. It's really neat. I went to the 1984 Olympics at the LA Coliseum, and I got to see the distance runners, and I got to see Carl Lewis, and I got to see, I think the great English runner of that time was Daley Thompson, who medaled, and to see those guys run is just, wow, what a thrill. And the Coliseum was filled. It was just an electric venue. But appreciate these talents. There's some great people. Feel really bad for Lyles. There's a lot of people out there that I don't think Lyles because he's so yappy, but I think the persona is really good for the sport. And I just sensed right from out of the blocks, he's not right. And I thought it was fatigue, and then we found out that he's an asthmatic. I said, well, maybe that couples into the equation, and then a positive COVID test on top of it. Wow.
Yeah, well, if it's COVID, I mean, that just zaps your energy. So amazing, he even finished third.
Yeah.
But it's interesting, the story about the photographer. There's been a lot of memorable things that we've seen in the Olympics for runners. Remember Zola Budd?
Sure.
And was it Mary Decker-Slaney was the rival? And then Zola Budd ran barefoot, and then they had the collision, and she fell. And it was Mary Decker that fell, right? And Zola Budd kept running, I think.
Good question.
Was that 1984? It might have been.
No, I think that was later. But anyhow. Yeah, there have been a lot of strange things. And, like the Olympic marathon, which is just a monstrous, was it 26 miles or
26.2?
Yeah. And to see when they get to the final lap and they're running into the stadium for the final lap, and these guys are staggering, and one guy falls down and his teammate picks him up.
Yeah.
And they kind of stagger to the line.
Nice.
I think there was a marathoner from maybe Ethiopia. He fell down. His father came off the sideline and picked him up and walked him across the finish line. So it's some really cool end result things.
You were a distance runner back in the day, right?
Broken down distance runner.
What was your event?
Miler.
Ah.
I was a small guy, though. Mm-hmm. I was pretty good in high school. I had power and I had durability, but I was slight. I did not have. I ran an indoor meet, the high school version of the Milrose Games in New York City, and I got my ass kicked. And those guys, I mean, I was so intimidated because there was so much talent, and all these kids that wound up being Olympians were running in the Milrose Games, and to be on the track and to see some of these guys was just absolutely amazing. And to see Jim Ryan, who at that time was our greatest American miler, and again, he was 6'4", long strider, big difference versus some dude from Long Island that's 5'8". So I enjoyed it. Couldn't get healthy, couldn't stay healthy. That's the way life is. Sports medicine was different than what it is now.
But you were out there competing. You were in the arena.
I was getting my ass kicked. Yes, I was. Thank you. Okay. Hey, this podcast is brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. There are 9 locations to serve you in San Diego. You got projects. They got materials. You want ideas? They can help you. DIXIELINE Lumber. It is time for Fans Forum. You think we got a few people here got questions? John Riley, these are your best friends. You pick and choose who you want to move front and center.
Okay, here, let's start with Dave Dog. And he says, hey, can you predict the Raiders' wins and losses?
I think it's a scuffle because I don't think they know that if they've got a quarterback. Gardner Minshew is a bit of a gunslinger. I liked him when he came out. But, you know, he throws TDs and he makes plays and he turns the ball over a lot. And I don't know what to make of Aiden O'Connell. He manages games. He played okay for a couple of games, and then they couldn't get the ball in the end zone. So, you know, the Raiders I think, have got a monstrous quarterback issue. And now if they get a quarterback who can play, they're going to be dangerous because they got Devontae Adams and they got Brock Bowers, the tight end from Georgia. And they got a second-year tight end out of Notre Dame, Michael Mayers. And they've got the ex-New England Patriot guy, Jacoby Myers, is the other wide receiver. They got skilled guys to distribute the ball too. But they don't have Josh Jacobs, the heavy-duty do-everything running back. He's gone to Green Bay. They got a young running back, Zamir White, out of Georgia, power guy, but he's never, ever done it. And have they solved their offensive line problems? That's another mystery because they haven't protected their quarterbacks dating back to Derek Carr very well at all. So it's a little early to project. We will do an NFL preseason evaluation, and we will predict who's going to go where. At least I will. I don't know about him. But we'll do that right as we get to the end of August before the regular season starts. But take the logo off the side of the Raider helmet. You know, the pirate with the patch. Mm-hmm. Just put a question mark or put the letter Q on the side of the helmet because Tom Telesco, the new general manager with Antonio Pierce as the coach, they still got to get answers. So I don't think we're going to know for the next 3 preseason games.
Yeah, the helmet with the question mark reminds me of that old Three Stooges episode. Yes. Remember? I think that was Moe's number. But, you know, Raider Nation is still so fired up, and the response on Instagram to the vertical videos that we're doing, they're convinced that they're going to be over 500. They're going to be contending in the playoffs. And you know what? As a former, well, still, I am a Raider fan. They're my number 3 team. I grew up with Ken Stabler and that whole group in the 70s. I'd love to see the Raiders good again, but I still don't think they're going to be better than 500.
Who's a quarterback? Is the quarterback going to make plays? I mean, you know, they may not have liked Derek Carr at the end, but Derek Carr was a pretty damn competitive quarterback that helped them win games. Mm-hmm. But they got so many holes, and it's taken so long. I do think their defense is going to be much better. I think the acquisition of Christian Wilkins, massive defensive tackle who's very quick off the ball. I mean, why Miami let him get out the door stuns me. But getting Christian Wilkins to go with Max Crosby, and if last year's number 1 pick, a young defensive end on the other side, can stay healthy and actually get on the field, and they've got one other pass rusher that's pretty good by name of Malcolm Kuntz. You know, they'll be better defensively up front, but they got to. Who's going to make the plays for them when they have the football themselves? So only time will tell as to what they're going to be able to do. I do think Minshew probably winds up being the quarterback, but there's such a history of turnovers there that just drive coaching staffs crazy. That's why he's been with 3 teams now.
There have been moments when Minshew has looked fantastic.
Exactly.
And where I thought he was by far the best backup quarterback in the league. But, you know, you're a big fan of Telesco. And so he's out there, you know, boots on the ground looking for some talent.
He needs another draft. And they may have to draft another quarterback, too. O'Connor played very well at Purdue, and he was marginally competitive with the Raiders, trying to manage games at the end of the year when they had all those injuries. But, you know, A year ago this time, we're talking about Garoppolo being the Raider quarterback. And there's a solution to the problem, and it obviously...
Jimmy G?
Yeah, it wasn't. Thank you for the Raider Nation call. Go ahead, John.
All right, let's go here to William. He says, hello, Hacksaw. Peyton said all rookies are at the bottom of the depth chart, even drafted at number 12.
Well, the fact that he took so many... We're talking about the Broncos, and we're talking, obviously, about Bo Nix. The fact that he was drafted, and then he took a ton of snaps with the number 1 unit through all the OTAs, those 3 OTA sessions, then the veterans minicamping, he was running with the number 1s. And then to put him number 3, maybe, like I said, maybe they're going to play Zach Wilson and come to a conclusion, that's not our guy, so now we'll step aside and we'll have Stidham versus Nix. I would think if John and I are betting beers, you'll be buying me beer. I think Bo Nix will be the starter come opening day. But if that's the case, why isn't he playing a lot of snaps in preseason? At least the first preseason game, he's 3 on the depth chart.
This is strategy for Peyton, I'm sure, to try to get under Bo Nix's skin a little. But, it's also old school where, we're not going to let these rookies, go to the front of the line. We got our veterans. And so, Bo Nix, I agree with you. He'll be the quarterbacking.
On we go. Next question.
Let's go here to Tim. He goes, it's hard to believe that it'll be 30 years since the Chargers' lone Super Bowl berth. In an alternative universe, say the Cowboys win the NFC, how would have San Diego matched up against Dallas? And could the Bolts have won? Pick 'em, pal.
What year are you talking about? Are you talking about the year the Chargers went to the Super Bowl, or are we talking about the Chargers this year versus the Cowboys this year? I need clarification there, Tim. What era of Cowboy football or Charger football are you talking about? If we're just talking about Justin Herbert and this Charger football team versus Dallas, Dallas needs to find its running game. And, the fact that they're going to give the ball back to an old guy like Ezekiel Elliott after letting him go a year ago, and now they brought him back and he's their starter. The fact you don't have CeeDee Lamb and that they need to solve that situation. They've got a lot of injuries. They never replaced their inside linebacker, Leighton Vander Esch, who had the neck surgery that ended his career. So Dallas is not, it's been a long time since Dallas won the Super Bowl, too. So, I think Dak Prescott versus Justin Herbert would be a fun game to watch, but I don't think the supporting cast is real Super Bowl quality right now.
Well, even going back to 95, Dallas was hella good back then. Wasn't that Barry Switzer back by that time?
Switzer, I think, was gone by that point. Switzer, Jimmy Johnson to Switzer, I think was right in the point that I was coming in. And Aikman had just come on board, and, boy, they were miserable. My first year as a voice of the Chargers, they had Michael Irvin. And Troy Aikman, I think, went 1-15 his first year. They were really down, but it took time. And then Jimmy drafted really well, though Jerry Jones said he was the one that picked the players. Jimmy coached them up, and they got real good, and they had that nice run, and they obviously won a Super Bowl. And then when Jimmy went through the divorce with Jerry, Switzer came in, and Switzer won again with Jimmy Johnson's players, and then it kind of went sideways on him, and then Switzer wound up getting taken out.
I love the whole Stephen A. Smith bit where he gives Cowboy fans a hard time, and because, Cowboys, America's team and all that, I just like it to see them struggle, but who knows? Chargers, Cowboys this year, that would be a kind of a fun game.
That'd be a fun game
if they played.
They're not going to play in the Super Bowl, trust me.
Oh, yeah, that's for sure.
Not this time. Thank you. Go next question.
Okay, this next one's from Chris, and Chris likes to channel the Hacksaw Schick, so let's have some fun with this. Saw, you are bleeping brilliant.
Agree.
And we need your insight on this incredibly important topic. It has become obvious, much like you, that Dylan Cease's dominance has everything to do with his immaculate mustache. Please give your 2 cents into the power of the mustache and how it has enabled you to dominate sports talk for decades.
Preller has a mustache. I texted him and said, listen, if you need some advice on this, let me know. Now, I haven't heard back from him on that. But now the Cease, tell you what, this is the brilliance of the pitching coach. And I said, if there's an intangible MVP, Chris, on the Padres, it's what Ruben Niebla has done with a whole bunch of people, including Dylan Cease. He had that nice start, and then he had 11 bad starts in a row. I say, what the hell has happened to him? And that's why you have video, and that's why you study, and that's why you have analytics. And they found out, or at least they theorize, that Dylan Cease, as he was doing his windup, was holding the glove on the ball out here, and he was tipping pitches. So they relocated, and I think it's very hard to change your mechanics, but they relocated him in his stretch, glove hand, ball in the glove next to the body. And when he makes his stride to the plate, he does not decoy anything out. You don't know what's coming because you can't see the hand. The hand's not out here until it's going forward to pitch. That's Ruben Niebla citing something in video and reinventing this guy. And Niebla's done a pretty good job with a whole bunch of other people, too. You know, I got to believe the success of Adrian Morion as a one-inning setup guy is the end result of Ruben convincing his kid inside, this is how you have to think and this is what you need to do with your pitchers. And obviously he took the refugee pitcher from Japan, and Robert Suarez is one of the top closers in Major League Baseball because they worked on mechanics and delivery and repetition of mechanics and arm slot repetition. That's all from the pitching coach. That pitching coach done a hell of a job. But, yeah, I concur with you. I think A.J. Preller's mustache is kind of weak. And Cease, hey, some guys can grow mustaches and be well, and others can't and still be well.
Cease has got a great mustache, yeah. I think. But, you know, Ruben Niebla, obviously fantastic. Did you see the interview where they were talking to Xander Bogaerts, and he was talking previously to Martin Perez before he came over and said, you go talk to Ruben Niebla. He knows everything. Listen to what he has to say.
Well, one start in, he pitched pretty well for a start, but this guy had an ERA of 5.62 in Pittsburgh, and this is a guy that Texas got rid of, and when Texas didn't have enough pitchers. So, you know, they're all projects. You got to stay on them, you got to work with them, and you got to help them with their confidence, and you solve their X and O's or their mechanical flaws. You can make them legitimate pitchers. I mean, being able to throw 98 is one thing, but being able to throw it consistently and locate it consistently and then locate all the other pitches consistently and repeat your mechanics, that's the whole bloody thing. I pitched in high school, and I was all over the place when I got out of sync. So I understand that. My dad was a pitcher. So I understand mechanics and slot and all that. And can you imagine with the amount of money that's on the line that these guys can make and the velocity and the wide variety of pitches they're throwing, not getting out of sync. You get out of sync, it's like the game is foreign to you and you can't get it back.
Yeah.
So that's why you need great pitching coaches.
You know, just to go back to the mustache, as long as I've known you or seen you, you have always had a mustache. So when did you first grow the mustache and become a part of the Hacksaw brand?
Long hair and Fu Manchu mustaches were part of the culture in hockey. And I grew a mustache almost immediately. I only shaved it one time. This had to be 1982, maybe 1983. Shaved it one time. Walked around the corner of the kitchen. My wife almost dropped the dish. She didn't even recognize me. So I decided to grow it back, and I've had it ever since. So, but it was a hockey thing back then when everybody had long hair and everybody had Fu Manchus and all that.
Right on. I like that. I like that story. Let's move on here. Let's go to John. He says, God, the Chargers even chargered hiring Harbaugh. Couldn't have happened to a more deserving Spanos.
Well, Spanos gets whatever he deserves. But, you know, I don't know who to believe. I just have a hard time buying the sales pitch from Harbaugh that I knew nothing. Come on. You're the head coach of one of the greatest college football programs. Head coaches are control freaks, John. They handle everything. They know anything and everything, and there should be no surprises within that program. You didn't know about Connor Stallions? You didn't know about schemes and what your coordinators were presenting in game plans and where the hell did this come from? Well, maybe your coordinator got some inside data from Connor Stallions. And the fact that the NCAA said this 16-page document is all truthful. This is all the data. So you're going to believe us and the investigations we had that the coaches who testified to us and have been suspended, or you're going to believe him and the statement he made at the Charger facility. So story still to be told. At the end of the day, who's telling the truth and who's the liar? I don't think it matters because he's never going back to college football at age 60 anyhow, but it does besmirch his credibility a little bit.
So let's pretend in an alternative universe. Well, first of all, I think Harbaugh must have known, but let's just pretend that he didn't know. Okay, we'll give him the benefit of the doubt. But at some point, he must have discovered it before the NCAA got wind of it. Can you imagine in that alternative universe that a college football coach in the Big Ten, national champion favorite, would come clean and say, hey, we just discovered internally one of our coaches was stealing, video from this other team, and then let the chips fall where they may. I could never imagine that happening.
It'd be hard for me to believe. Now, the only thing that I can imagine is these coordinators knew.
Of course.
And they got the inside information. So they walked to Harbaugh and says, this is the game plan we're going to put in when we play Iowa. And Harbaugh says, okay. And we go from there. So is it conceivable he didn't know that Connor Stallions was giving inside information on signal calls to the coordinator, Sharon Moore, the offensive guy, or to Jess Minter, the defensive coordinator? I find that hard to believe because Minter is his right-hand man with the Chargers right now. So still a lot here that's got to be sifted through. I just have a hard time buying that he didn't know. And if he's innocent, why wouldn't you turn over your cell phone? Because all the other coaches had to forfeit their cell phones. Michigan did not discipline Harbaugh. The NCAA did. This story's not complete.
Does this kind of remind you of the Pete Carroll deal when he left SC to go to Seattle?
Except that he never got dragged into the NCAA mess in Reggie Bush. He cooperated. It's not like he stonewalled them like Harbaugh stonewalled them, refused to meet with him, refused to talk to him, refused to turn over the inside information in a cell phone. That's where the other coaches were forced to cooperate. They did turn it over. They were suspended. So, tough call. He's got more to worry about right now. He's got a quarterback that's hurt with the Bolts. That's a big story.
Well, think about if you're a Michigan fan, because they went through all of this in the 90s with the basketball team, and now they're going through it with the football team. So, Big Blue.
On we go. Next question.
On we go. Let's go to Callan. I'm of the belief that the final week of the season could be like 1996, where the division title and one of the wild cards are all up for grabs. What memories do you have of the 96 Padres team?
Padres, Dodgers. Beating the Dodgers. Chris Gwynn's big hit.
Yeah.
Tony Gwynn doing what Tony Gwynn always did. That has a lot to say. And the Padres, they've been to 2 World Series, even though facing the Tigers and then getting swept by the Yankees in 4 straight was not easy to accept. But winning in crunch time at the end of the season, especially in the other guy's yard or against the enemy being the Dodgers. So this thing, there's a lot of baseball still to be played. That's why this 15-game stretch against the have-nots in baseball was critical. As we started this podcast, the Padres had just been given a gift victory by the Pirates, who are just unraveling. The Padres are 2.5 games out of first place.
Wow.
As of finishing this series in Pittsburgh. Who could have consumed that a month ago when they were 9 back? They've made up an awful lot. Now, that being said, let's be real honest here, Callum. Dodgers are getting injured guys back, and we'll just have to see. Mookie Betts is going to be back by the first of the week. Muncy may not be far behind. Yamamoto says it'll take me 1 rehab start to be back on the rotation. So the guys who were injured that have kind of led to this downfall of the Dodgers, I kept saying, how long before the Dodgers tumble? Well, they've tumbled now, and the lead is down to 2.5, but LA's going to get some guys back. So we get a lot of games to be played, a lot of baseball they play. But you can't catch them unless you're on a hot streak, and they're on a damn hot streak right now. That's for certain.
Oh, it's great. As a Padre fan, I'm loving it. But to Callan's point, if you look at the end of the season for the Padres, they finish on the road in L.A. and then on the road in Arizona.
Yep.
And so, this could be a crazy situation. But I got to comment on the Chris Gwynn thing, because I remember 1996, I was in Qualcomm Stadium listening to you doing the play-by-play, and the whole stadium erupted when Chris Gwynn hit that ball. And it was kind of crazy because we were watching one game and listening to another game.
He did that in Dodger Stadium.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, just amazing. And again, Long Beach kid doing it against favorite team, Dodgers. Oh.
But the other part of the story was, didn't Stan Humphries fumble the snap because he was distracted from the noise?
Yeah.
So that's just all part of the lore of the whole thing, which is just great.
Pennant races are great, just like the race to the playoffs in the NFL.
Oh, absolutely. Okay, here, let's go to 4RXLA. He goes, the other Big Ten schools have non-conference cupcakes on their schedule. Alabama is the king of cupcake schedules.
Yeah, but this is such a traditional rivalry, USC Notre Dame. But then again, USC didn't give a damn about the rivalry, and the history of the Pac-12 conference has been in place since, 1915? it's just sad. I'm going to be interested to see how they do, because they're going into Big Ten country, and Big Ten country's got 4 or 5 real power football teams. And, Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State are the elite right now. But I'll guarantee you, a game at Camp Randall Stadium in Madison, Wisconsin in fall afternoon, that's a tough-ass place to play. And going to Iowa plays Rock'em Sock'em football there in Iowa City. That's not going to be easy. So there's a lot of tough games they're going to have to play. And, obviously they're going to have to play Oregon and Washington somewhere in the mix of this schedule going forward. So I just think USC, UCLA, and the travel is going to be really, really hard.
Yeah, this is going to be fascinating to see how they perform. All 4 of those Pac-12 schools. But there are still a few weak teams in the Big Ten.
Oh,
right?
Sure.
So like what would it be, like Rutgers or
Northwestern? I mean, some of those guys have been down.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean they can't come back.
But would you think of a game like SC against Rutgers? Is that a cupcake game, even if it's an in-conference game?
Yeah. USC, Maryland is not what Maryland has been in different spurts in their era. I don't know where P.J. Flick is in Minnesota. They had a good first season, did not play well second season. So, yeah, are there some lower echelon teams in the Big Ten? Sure, just like playing Oregon State, Washington State, the bottom of the pack in the Pac-12. But the travel thing to me that's monstrous. You travel 22,000 miles in a 10 or 11 week span in football. That's hard. We were just talking about jet lag last week from your flight. Jet lag.
Yeah, I mean, that'd be a mess. Now, Notre Dame, are they still independent, or are they playing in a conference now?
No, they're independent.
Okay.
No, but they do have a linkage to the ACC.
That's what it is.
And it's called, correct phraseology is alliance.
Okay.
But no, they're lifetime independents, and it's too bad if this rivalry is going to evaporate, and that's what Lincoln Riley said this week, that we have to reconstruct our non-conference. We just have to make room for Tulsa. That's all there is to it. Yeah, break.
Okay, let's move on. Let's go to Robert, and he says, "Hi, Lee and John. With the week Jackson Merrill has had, is back into the lead for the Rookie of the Year. And forget Paul Skeens. Second, is there a way to listen to some of your classic interviews? Thanks, Bob."
Unfortunately, I don't think so. I kept some of my archives, but I couldn't keep everything when I was bought out at $6.90 and then at $10.90. And I'm not mystical in terms of how mechanically, technologically you transfer things. I just never did it. I didn't have anybody to help me do it. So most of those interviews I think are pretty much gone by the board. But the memories of the interviews are still there. It's too bad that the Padres missed Paul Skeens and Mitch Keller, who are really 1 and 2 in the Pittsburgh rotation. But Buccos come back out here, so they may get a chance to go against one of those guys when they come back in starting next Monday. When the Padres come back play the Pirates in the homestand, because Skeens is really fun to watch. I mean, that'd be fun to see Skeens against Machado and Skeens against these other guys, because he's pitched really well.
Did you like that at bat between Aroldis Chapman and Manny Machado yesterday? Wasn't that something?
I mean, the clock said 105. I don't know if it was 105, but Manny was startled at what he saw. The snap and the crackle of Aroldis Chapman throwing that. And I thought to myself coming over here today, because I sat there and I watched the end, and Bednar self-destructed for the second game in a row. If Bednar is struggling with a 5.17 ERA as your closer, why is not Chapman the closer right now when Bednar's going through some tough times? But poor Pittsburgh. I mean, they got the air taken out of the balloon in this 3-game series by the Padres. And Pittsburgh played really poor. I mean, Rowdy Tellez may hit some balls out of the stadium, but boy, he's detrimental. He's like a parking traffic pylon at first base. He can't get to anything that's hit. And I was very disappointed in Cabran Hayes. He's the son of Charlie Hayes, former Giants third baseman. He didn't play very good defensively either. Pittsburgh just didn't look like the same team.
There's been so many great Pittsburgh teams back in the day.
Sure.
We can remember all the names.
We are family.
Oh, yeah. But I just want to say Jackson Merrill has shown us so much. I mean, this kid is unbelievable. What's your take on the whole angle of Paul Skeens is a pitcher and only pitches once every 5 days, where Merrill is an everyday guy? Do you think that could give Merrill an edge in the Rookie of the Year vote?
I think there's also an intangible. The Padres are a playoff team, and Pittsburgh's going home October 1st because they're not ready yet to be a true playoff team. I think that's in the equation. But, I mean, if Merrill pushes this thing and stays above 300, and he's hit a pile of home runs here wrapped around both sides of the All-Star game, he's got to be the National League Rookie of the Year because he's playing every minute of every inning and he's making all kinds of plays. He even helped the damn grounds crew the other night when he was standing in center field on the water track and he's waving at him. And did you see the video? He's waving at him. He says, "Hey, there's water here."
Yeah, he was like going to dive in.
He's going to dive in. Great kid. Stage is not too big for him. So, no, he's got to be the Rookie of the Year.
Well, do you think Skeens has a shot at the Cy Young?
No, he hasn't. He has not pitched enough.
Right.
So, I mean, it was 5-1, I believe, as a starter. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's no doubt that he's got tremendous velocity and he strikes a lot of batters out. And they brought him along slowly. They let him pitch 5 and 6 innings, and they let him extend out to 7 or 8. And he's gotten to the 9th, I think, one time. But, you know, unless he's making 25 starts, I can't see him being Rookie of the Year or MVP.
Well, back in the day in the 90s, when you were doing all those interviews on 690, that was before the internet. So now, see, we can do this sort of thing. It gets loaded up to YouTube and it's there in perpetuity. But what you were probably walking out of 690 with what, reels of tape? And
I did.
And you know, how are you going to convert that and what a pain in the neck it is to manage it
I didn't know how to do it and I didn't have time to do it. Now is just not interested in doing it at that point.
You were probably bitter about all that.
No,
too.
I was just disappointed the way it ended, but that's life in broadcasting today. I had a great run. I did sports talk for 28 years on 690 and then 1090, and it just changed, landscape changed, and you have to accept what is. And then I vaulted off and started to do TV, and I made all these contacts at Sirius XM, and I did 3 years of weekends on the baseball channel, which was really kind of cool, and ventured off and got the chance to do some part-time TV here. And then all of a sudden we're doing this website, and then we're doing this podcast. So we keep on doing what we do best. And I still have my Royal Manual typewriter in my garage.
What a career. I mean, seriously, what a career. It's unbelievable. Let's go here to some guys are reminiscing about the Padres. Rap Album Depot says, the 96 Padres had a great team with the 96 NL MVP Ken Caminiti, along with Hall of Famers Tony Gwynn and Bruce Bochy.
Yeah, they really did. And we went through a pretty good era there from 1994 on. And, you know, prior to that, obviously, the Padres of the Garvey era and what they did get into the World Series against the Tigers. But that was a special group of personalities, I thought, what Kevin Towers and Larry Lucchino had been able to put together, and kind of a unique manager. I knew of Bruce Bochy. He was a backup catcher. I never thought of Bruce Bochy of being some erudite, smart baseball guy. And then I interacted with him and said, man, he's down home, but he knows baseball. He knows how to handle players. And all this from a backup catcher. I used to joke with him. I said, last time I talked to him a couple of years ago, I ran into him down here, and I said, backup catcher going to the Hall of Fame. Can't believe that. 3 rings. That's so cool.
Well, 4 if you count Texas.
Yes.
Right? I mean, yeah, what a career he's had. I mean, and I remember when the Padres got rid of Bochy because it was the new ownership and they wanted to turn the page. I mean, he got snapped up just like that.
Just like after he decided, I want to do this again, he got snapped up again by Texas. And look what they did last year. Now, he and Chris Young have just been crushed by pitching staff injuries, just nonstop. And Seager's been in and out of the lineup, and Adolis Garcia, the young power-hitting outfielder, was hurt. So this year goes down as just a medical mishap as to why they couldn't get back there. And they've spent a lot of money, and they got a lot of good players, but if you don't have your pitching staff healthy, and they lost everybody really early. Actually, them and Houston, between them, that's more quality starting pitching on the disabled list with surgeries than I think I've seen anywhere.
Amazing what they're going through. But, you know, Boch, he used to live about a block from here.
Sure.
You know, and so I'd see him out there walking the dog, doing different things. Just a great guy, you know, so awesome.
Good run.
Okay, let's go here. Again, people reminiscing about the Chargers, too. Force Ghost Fabio says, the 94 San Diego versus the Dallas team that lost to San Francisco 38-21 in the NFC Championship game. I mean, that would have been a tough matchup.
Yeah. But the Chargers, I'm not going to say the Chargers are living on borrowed time. They were just not equal to what the 49ers were come Super Bowl Sunday. It's just there was way too much firepower. And San Francisco had a good defense, and San Francisco had a phenomenal offense. And the Chargers, they got in a hole, and they never got caught up in that game. And the Chargers, for an AFC team, were pretty damn good in the AFC. But the NFC was just a different makeup different style of football. And Steve Young was so dynamic as a quarterback, and they could run the ball, they could throw the ball, they could throw to everybody and just make a lot of plays. I mean, George Seifert had a really gifted offensive football team, and the Chargers had to work really hard to get where they got, and it wasn't easy. I mean, they could have lost that playoff game at home to Miami in the mud, and they won it. And I thought they were going to lose to the Steelers at Three Rivers, and they hung in there until they made enough plays, and they finally won the AFC Championship game over Cowher and the Steelers. But they were not on the same plane, talent-wise, with the 49ers of Steve Young.
Just great memories of that time, isn't it? I mean, just the energy in San Diego, and everyone was fired up, and you were right there in the middle of it all.
It was pretty electric. And I tell people all the time, the journey. You remember the journey and the games of the journey that got you to Super Bowl Sunday. You know, and the community has kind of forgotten this team went to the Super Bowl. But I have to remind people, well, that was a great run, and beating the Steelers and beating the Chiefs at Arrowhead and winning up in Seattle when we were really struggling, looked like we were going to be in big trouble. Those, beating the damn Raiders. Those are the things I remember, was the journey to get to Super Bowl Sunday. Super Bowl Sunday didn't work out as we had all hoped it would, but it was the journey to get there, which that's what I remember forever. And what I hope the community remembers. And I hope as we get to the 30th anniversary of that Super Bowl run, people will remember that team and those coaches and those players.
Yeah, that was a special run, and let's move on. Jason actually has a comment on this. He says the 94 Chargers would have matched up way better against the Cowboys and the Niners.
Oh, I don't know anybody who's going to match up with the 49ers. I mean, there was just so much firepower. So, and again, Dallas had great people. I mean, Dallas had Aikman, and Dallas had still Michael Irvin, and Dallas had Emmitt Smith, and that was great. And I got to see the Cowboys when those guys were just getting there, and Dallas was really bad. What Jerry Jones inherited when he bought the team, was terrible. It was an old team without many players, and it took them a couple of drafts. But they made the Herschel Walker trade with Minnesota that gave them the assets to be able to go get Michael Irvin and get Aikman and Emmitt Smith, and then the pass rushers and there's offensive linemen that don't get a lot of. Those are not sexy names, but those are really good football players. So I mean, Dallas did it by. Was it an 11-for-1 trade, I think, with Herschel Walker, Minnesota?
Something like that.
I mean, he stockpiled so many draft picks over the coming years. And then Jimmy Johnson, brilliant guy, took some of those draft picks and made more trades and got more picks and players back. So Dallas became, in essence, a 3-time Super Bowl champion under Jimmy Johnson and what he then handed over to Barry Switzer. Okay, a couple more here before I go to social media.
Well, I got one question, though.
You always got a question.
Yeah, you mentioned Troy Aikman. What's going on with this whole Troy Aikman, Lamar Jackson, number 8 thing? Are you following that?
I haven't paid much attention to it. It's not who's the better player in uniform number 8. And
are they trying to get like the copyright to the number? I can't figure out what it is.
I think somebody was trying to get a copyright thing, and Aikman said, "No, you can't do that. 8 is my number too."
Okay, all right. Let's go here. Do a couple of social medias, and here's the haters. We're going to come out for this one. Yeah, it says this is from Herbert talking about if the Dodgers can win the NL West. Finally, something good comes out of your mouth. I respect your knowledge, but you're such a hater.
Am I a hater because of my critique of the Dodgers, or am I a hater directed towards the Padres? You have to inform me where I'm a hater. If I'm talking about defending Dave Roberts, is this his fault, or above his people above him his fault, or just bad luck because of the injuries his fault? So please, Herbert, if you're going to critique the host, tell me where I'm a hater. Am I hating on the Dodgers? Or am I hating on the Padres? Because I get it from both sides of the street on a continual basis. He's your best friend. You tell me what he means.
Well, it's true that the Padre fans and Dodger fans are both convinced that you hate them both, and that you're negative. But you know what I think is what a big part of this is that a lot of the media in Southern California are real soft.
Cheerleaders.
Yeah, and so you. Like Howard Cosell, tell it like it is. And so, I think that kind of throws some people here in Southern California.
Well, up until right now, the Padres have underachieved. Now the Padres are really rocking and rolling. I can't say the Dodgers underachieved. They've won 8 division titles in a row. Has the World Series been kind of tough? Yeah. Have the mistakes made in handling the pitching been a problem? Yeah, it has. Are the mistakes Dave Roberts' fault or because of the piece of paper the analytical guys give them from upstairs that say this is what we recommend you do in certain situations in the World Series? So I'm not hating on anybody. I'm just presenting the facts as I view them. And I guess if that's a negative, then I guess you view me as a hater. But I'm not hating on anybody. I'm just giving you the facts with my opinions attached to the facts.
One man's opinion.
When you get your own podcast, you can have your own opinions and do your podcast the way you wish.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, let's get it. Here's a Charger comment from Conrad. Chargers are going to be last place in the AFC West. Also looking forward to the Raiders kicking their ass week 1. Go Rams.
I don't know who your quarterback is. I'll tell you, I'd rather have this quarterback, Justin Herbert, than your quarterback. That's a big issue. But injuries change everything in the league. I mean, what you have on your roster opening day in September may not be what's there October 15th and might not be there when the playoffs begin. So it's a little early to say somebody's going to kick somebody's ass. I'd much rather have the Charger quarterback than the Raiders quarterbacks right now, and you got to have quarterbacks in this league to survive.
See, this is Raider Nation, and they're all fired up. And they're still, talking about the 63-17 game or whatever that was. That was last year, wasn't it?
Yeah. And just like the years you won, the dented trophy is dusty as in the back of your closet. I'm sorry, it doesn't mean anything anymore to me. Maybe to you, yes. It doesn't mean anything to me. Talking about the Raiders Super Bowl trophies.
You got to go way back. I mean, it's like the Plunkett era when they last won a World Series or a Super Bowl, right?
Yeah, that was a few third downs and longs ago.
I'd say. Okay, let's get another one here. Let's go Dodgers again. This is from Abuela. He says, half the team is in AAA right now. Hopefully guys come back before they lose the lead.
Half the team has been on rehab assignments. Yeah. We will see this push. Mookie Betts will be back. Might be back as early as Monday. I don't know how far down the road Max Muncy is right now, but that was the genesis of the trades to get Rosario and get some of these other super multi-position guys to come into play. But the pitching staff, if Yamamoto comes back after one rehab start and he says all he needs is one, give me 5 innings, I'll be okay. He comes back. And you got Kershaw, who you're going to have to manage. But Kershaw's last outing was pretty doggone impressive. He was decent. He didn't have velocity. But, if they can get this rotation back in place and you get Mookie back, then maybe your lineup takes on a different dimension. Ohtani looks very weary to me. When would you ever think you and I to have a conversation about Ohtani being 0 for 15? Luis Ariz of the Padres, I don't know if paying any attention. I mean, he's dropped off a lot. I think he was in I want to say 3 for 17 hole coming through this Pittsburgh series, and his cold spell had gone actually back farther than that to the Colorado series. So it's a grind, and some of these guys are showing some wear and tear.
Well, what about Walker Buehler? I mean, do you think he's ever going to come back to the old Walker Buehler?
He just may need the full off season. I mean, he's had 2 rehab outings at Oak City. Neither one was dominant. He's staying in Oklahoma City. He may be throwing another one tonight or maybe tomorrow. So we just don't know. It takes time to come back from this adversity, and he doesn't look like he's the same pitcher now. Now, an off-season of weight training with more work with specialists, maybe they find his velocity and they find his location, but he hasn't shown it at Oklahoma City at all.
Weren't you saying that Mookie, when he comes back, he's going to go back to shortstop?
The Dodgers said that. I was told that they were going to probably put him in right field because they've got guys to play shortstop, but they announced yesterday Mookie's going to bat second, not first. Ohtani will stay lead off, and Mookie's going back to shortstop. I said, wow, that's different because other people are saying he's going to right field for a wear and tear factor.
Well, who else would play short? Because Gavin Lux is like stinking up the joint.
He's hitting though.
Yeah,
Lux is hitting much better now than he hit the first half of the season. Now, I think he's got issues with confidence throwing the baseball, but evidently Mookie's going to be the shortstop.
Mookie can do everything, can he? I mean, that guy's unbelievable.
So we'll see. Dodgers. Cavalry's coming, some are there, and obviously getting Jack Flaherty at the trade deadline is a huge impetus. Now you got Glasnow and you got Jack Flaherty and you got Yamamoto, and now suddenly things look and feel very different, at least on the mound. And then if Kershaw can be half of what Kershaw was, if you can give him 4 or 5 quality innings, now suddenly your rotation looks very different.
that last week of the season is going to be amazing.
Oh, I concur. Well, the whole last month of the season, I mean, it crushes on. It's really something. The fact that lead is now down to 2.5 as of this moment, wow. Because it was 9 games.
You know, the Phillies knocked around the Dodgers last night, too.
And the Phillies are beat up. The Phillies look gassed. I mean, who would ever think, speaking of conversations, it would be talking about Bryce Harper being 1 for 34. He looks gassed. So, but there's still games to be played. It's going to be push.
You want to sneak one more in?
One more.
Okay, let's do a little Padres here. This is on your call about Ruben Niebla as the team MVP. And Caesar says, this is awesome. Ruben deserves so many of these shout-outs. I was thrilled when the Padres hired him, and I'm really proud of him.
He had a good rep in Cleveland. Why Cleveland let him get away, that's kind of a surprise. But that's built on relationships, and Preller knows people all over the place. And Preller's got different relationships with different people, and they stole this guy. Just like they stole, I think it's Victor Rodriguez. He's kind of an unknown. He's kind of a hitting consultant. His team's got 28 come-from-behind wins. This team, this batting order, which last year couldn't win extra inning games, and was miserable in crunch time. So Rodriguez has had some input here, but I think Niebla's acumen in terms of messaging to pitchers and his ability to go on that computer, and they watch video till their eyes fall out, and to find the minutest flaws in these pitchers, it's made a big difference. Hey, listen, we hope you have enjoyed this extended Thursday podcast heading towards the great sports weekend. Hope you'll share, subscribe to what we're doing. Tell everybody. Go on X and become one of my followers at Hacksaw1090. And we're back here on Monday. We'll talk pennant race baseball. We'll have come through the first weekend of the NFL preseason schedule. Always awful lot to talk about. This podcast brought to you by DIXIELINE Lumber and Home Centers. 9 locations to serve you. John, I know I won't see you because you'll be watching all these games like I'll be watching all these games. Have yourself a great sports weekend. See you come Monday.
Yeah, we got preseason NFL to talk about, too.
And you have yourself a great sports weekend, too. Thanks for being part of Hacksaw's Headlines.
Join us again for Hacksaw's Headlines on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. And find the audio version on your favorite podcast app.
Touchdown, San Diego!
For more content, go to LeeHacksawHamilton.com.